If you're new to stacking, what you'll notice is as time passes, you start to forget about the simple joys of just adding to your stack. I think back and, when I think about what my first additions to my stack were, what was the first piece of silver bullion that I added to my stack? It was actually just generic bars from AppMix, just 1 ounce bars. Why did I go that route? Well, I think his channel was called Silver Slayer, if I'm not mistaken. And again, he at the time he was really big into the panda collections. But it was a channel that I was watching pretty regularly. He did a video on, where do you buy silver? Where can you get kind of stuff? And he talked about AppMix. So I checked out AppMix. Didn't know at the time that that was the most expensive of the exchanges, or at least one of the most expensive. Went over there and checked them out and kind of said, you know what, if I'm going to get interested in this, I need to see what it looks like, in my hands, right? Physical, get that physical. And so I thought, if I'm purchasing this either as an investment or just to have, again, a diversified asset, something physical that's an asset that you can, put value into, I need to hold it. I need to see it. So I did. So I think I originally ordered like 8 ounces. And this is at the time when silver spot was $12, $10, something like that, somewhere in that range. And I thought, get enough where you can actually, feel like you're doing something with it, but also not too much where it's going to be like, a big, head over heels jump into metals. Because at that time, I had no idea what prices were, what price action, what to expect at all. So it was just kind of like dip your toe in. The interesting part is now when I look back at, those silver Amex bars, I know I still have them, but I have no idea where they are. There's somewhere in one of my mini stacks, here, there, and the other place. And so it's just funny to me that I know I kept them, or at least the bulk of them. Some of them I actually gave away. I gave away like 5 ounces to one of my best friend's kids, just so that they could, kind of play with it and, get interested in precious metals. But very interesting, you know what I mean? Very interesting to look back at your origins of where you stack. And with so many people coming into precious metals with, again, all the hype, it's one of those things that, your first couple pieces, especially depending on what you buy, it's so interesting because if you're buying eagles, I mean, again, it's nice to get your first, pieces of bullion, but those are going to get easily lost in the stack. How are you going to know once you got 20, 30, how are you going to know which ones were your first, eagles, that kind of thing. So I think it's interesting, what people's first purchases are and how that dictates how they treat them. Now, should you really be falling in love with your stack? Well, some people would say no, because, obviously if you're doing it as an investment, you got to be ready to sell at the right price. But if you're doing it more as a hobby and, again, a store of value. Now, I know a lot of you take exception with me saying that I don't consider silver and gold money. And let me make something clear. It's not that I'm not saying that it doesn't have value. That's not what I'm saying. Just to me, it's an asset. It is an asset, and assets have pros and cons, right? It's, the pros are that this is a physical asset. The other pro is that it has intrinsic value in that it's not just a paperweight. You can do something with these, with metals. It doesn't have to be just, monetary value. But also, there are drawbacks. Again, there's premiums, there's, depending on how you're buying, shipping and taxes and blah, 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 blah. So it's not without, its ups and downs. And I think those are the things that don't get explored, enough with the stacking community to kind of know what's what. Now, this right here is a hot commodity. This is not exactly constitutional, but junk silver. This is Canadian. And the cool thing about Canadian junk silver is that, as an American, we're all familiar with, well, we're not all, but many of us are familiar with the stories of, our own junk silver, Morgan silver dollars. There's one over here, Morgans and peace dollars and that kind of thing, but not so much with Canada. And the cool part is they make some pretty nice stuff. I mean, if you're a fan of the Royal Canadian Mint, obviously there's all kinds of cool stuff there. But the thing is, each of these coins have their own, interesting stories and histories and things like that we're not going to be as familiar with. I mean, look at this here. Look at that coat of arms. Look at how intricate that is. That's pretty cool. You know what I mean? There's a lot to it. Now, comparing that against our own quarter, our quarter has some intricacy to it, but you know, this kind of thing, there just feels like they put a little bit more effort into it. So my question is Canadian junk silver doing as well right now as American junk silver? I have no idea, but it's, again, interesting food for thought. But again, looking back at the origins of where my stack started and kind of what brought me into it, I think the biggest thing is that, you know, once you see the physical in your hand, once you kind of get an idea of what you like and don't like, it's really easy to kind of choose a path. You know, a lot of these things, for example, these guys here, the privy marked maples, these are just really cool. You know what I mean? They don't cost that much more than generic bullion, than generic maples. I don't have too many, well, I have some generic maples, but a lot of the maples that look like generic maples actually aren't. So I have a tube of these guys now. They look pretty similar, right? But what you don't realize is this is a regular maple. This is an incused maple, where the design's actually incused into the coin. Similar, but again, little things. These are the things that make stacking a joy. And again, there are so many pros to stacking, even though many of you would say that I'm very critical of stacking. It's not that. It's that I understand that there's pros and cons, and that, you know, there are things that are beneficial to you about it, but there are things that you need to be aware of. And again, you shouldn't be stacking due to FOMO, due to, hey, this is going on in the economy. You got to find your own reasons to stack, especially once you actually have it. Now, again, all of those things from the different channels, and this is why you should stack, and blah, blah, blah. I mean, at the end of the day, if it gets you to stack, is it good? I guess there's some truth to that. But the reality is that you don't want to go down that rabbit hole of thinking that there's going to be a shortage of silver. You know, you're not going to be able to get your hands on it. Even during the pandemic, I mean, realistically, like, even in the darkest days of the pandemic, if you had the money, you could get your hands on silver. And so, to me, that shows that there's a lot more readily available. Now, the part that gets lost on the stacking community is bullion, this kind of thing, is a very, very, very tiny percentage of where the silver supply goes. Silver supply goes to an industry, things like that. You know, it doesn't go to make coins. And so when you hear there's a shortage, oh my God, the U.S. Mint isn't making peace dollars or this or that, don't get in a tizzy. It's not a big deal. You'll be able to get your hands on something. It may not be what you wanted as far as the specific piece of bullion, but it's not going anywhere. There's plenty of this, and I think that goes just across the board. There's plenty of silver. It's not a rare metal. Now, gold, there's also a lot of gold out there, but you know, it's still, if you need it, you can find it, whether it's jewelry or whatever. There's a lot out there. But the interesting thing in this environment that people kind of aren't talking about is the other metals, platinum, palladium. You don't hear too much about them, but platinum's much rarer than gold is, but it's half the price right now. Why aren't you buying up platinum? If you're an investor, why aren't you doing it hand over fist? Well, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why you wouldn't be doing that, but if you really believed in the scarcity of metals and like you should be buying something that's limited in supply, well, I mean, platinum's where it's at. Same thing with palladium. Now, with those two in particular, there's all kinds of different things going on with EV, electric vehicles, and the catalysts, the catalytic converters, things like that, and parts and different things in regular vehicles that you know, are dictating what happens with price action there. Again, industrial forces at work. Why would it be any different with silver? You know, people think when these prices are jumping up, people think that, you know, mom and pop are out there, you know, buying up silver bullion. That's not what makes price go up. You know, you getting that monster box from Tyler, Dr. Tyler, whatever his name is, from SD Bullion, really isn't affecting spot price. You can buy out your LCS, and the only person you're going to make happy is the coin shop owner. You're not really driving up price for everybody else. But again, these are the things that you want to keep grounded. There's so much here for you. There's so much joy in having, you know, diversity in your stack. Or, hey, at the end of the day, even if you're the type of person that just stacks eagles or whatever, I mean, there's something there for everyone. There's definitely value. You just have to find it for yourself. Again, it has to make sense monetarily. It has to make sense as a use of your time, because contrary to popular belief, these things do take time. Not only accumulating them, storing them, but also like planning for them. Where's this going to go? How are you going to use it? What are you going to do with it? How are you going to keep it safe? All of those different things. Those are things that you got to put, that's energy that you have to put into your stack. Makes it fun, but it's not without a cost.